I'm Gab. He's not Jules. He's Don Hutchison.
Hey.
I'm back. It's a tag team. Jules is off celebrating his birthday. Don, you're still here.
I'm still here, mate. Yeah, second show in about 4 days. Loving it.
All right. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to all of us. You may have noticed it's International Week, but don't worry. There's still plenty to talk about because UEFA approving the big international game in Miami, LaLiga, Villarreal in Barcelona, and also Milan against Como, all the way in Perth, Australia. How about that? We're going to get into that in a little bit. We're going to get into Jim Ratcliffe's comments. Positivity Corner with Sir Jim. How about that?
Is it?
Oh, yes. He's backing Ruben Amorim to the hill. We got Women's Champions League. We got a bunch of other stuff going on. Changes potentially to the Champions League going forward. But let's start with something else. Let's start with... All right, if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see a picture of Lamine Yamal here.
Not a great picture.
Well, it's sad, Lamine Yamal, because obviously he's injured again. He's missed time. It's the issue. I want to take advantage of. I want to talk about this broader issue, right? So there's a debate about too much football being played by the elite teams.
Yeah.
When you look at the minutes, it's not that different to your time, which. By the way, Don's time
still in color.
It was still in color. Don played in the Premier League era. Don't be mean. I'm told anecdotally that two things. One is that the difference compared to when you played, and I want to get to the bottom of this. One is that there's more intensity in the game today.
Which
so
is
they
fair.
may be covering the same ground, but they're sprinting more, and that puts more of a strain. And secondly, that sometimes they bring younger players along much more quickly. I know, obviously, Maldini at 17 and Beckenbauer and Michael Owen, but Michael Owens and Wayne Rooney, there are other examples because there's people who then suffered a lot of injuries throughout their career.
And I just had a lovely voice note from Michael as well, which we'll get into, I'm pretty sure.
Exactly. So let's take the first one first. Is this game that much more intense than when you played, say, mid-90s to mid-2000s?
No. I think everyone probably looks at the walking football that was being played in the 70s and the 80s, which it was. It was walking football.
But we're not comparing it to
exactly. The 90s and the noughties was so intense. Every game was a battle. Every game was a fight. You had to put the work in. You had to put the miles in. You just said it there. I bet if you totted up all the games that these young players players these days are playing now. We used to play Boxing Day and the day after. We used to play 2 games in 2 days.
And you were sprinting as much as they are.
Absolutely.
You were sprinting as fast as
I wasn't sprinting as much as Yamal. No, there's a different sort of player. But I think it's a brilliant debate. I think it's fascinating because I don't really think we'll ever get to the bottom of it. But there's pros and cons. These guys are running on elite pitches. We were not running on elite
pitches in a second. You were playing in the Premier League.
Yeah.
My impression as somebody who's watching football, covering football in that era, is that that's undoubtedly true of the Premier League. I think in La Liga and in Serie A, certainly, the pace was slower. It was a more technical game. There was less of an intensity.
Fair.
So I'm going to throw this out as a theory. Could it be that football becomes more globalized, styles meshed? Really, with the advent of Pep at Barcelona, way back in 2008, 2009, there was a high possession team, but when they lost the ball, they all sprinted to win it back.
Yeah.
That's changed, and certainly in La Liga, there has been a big jump in intensity. And then maybe if Lamine Yamal had come around 20 years ago when it was perhaps less intense, he would have had no issue playing at that young age.
Well, maybe the intensity comes from, which I wish I could have my days back again, is these guys take care of the body. We played off the pitch just as hard as we played on the pitch. And it probably got you through to a certain level. But you probably, when I look back now at my career, if I had been teetotal and looked after my body how I should have done back then, a different culture, I reckon I probably left 15, 20% out there. You look at these guys now, and they are getting the max out of their body. So maybe they're putting their body under more strain. So maybe it's got nothing to do with the miles that they're covering or the intensity of the sprints. But these guys are so fit, like racehorses, whippets. Any small thing in their body can go against them with an injury.
It's interesting because what you're saying seems slightly counterintuitive. So if you're a phenomenal athlete, if you're so finely tuned, if you
when's this now?
No. Yeah. I need to wrap this segment up. So I'm just going to kind of, you just tell me if
I just think there's more things to go wrong if you're so fit.
That's the point I was getting to. So basically, you heard it here. Don Hutchison argues that maybe if Lamine Yamal was a less serious professional, maybe if he drank a little bit,
No,
then he'd be less. Then he wouldn't be as injury prone.
You take my point. These guys are so finely tuned.
All right, Don. Just to make it clear about what you were saying on the intensity piece of it, you explained this a little bit off air.
Yeah,
but essentially, the games were just as intense back then.
Yeah,
it's just that you weren't moving as fast.
Exactly.
As these guys.
Exactly.
Because these guys are generally they're
being trained better, they're fitter,
they're being trained better, and so on.
Yeah.
What I don't follow though is why do they pick up more injuries than you do? Is it just because they move faster? Because I guess the point is, and I remember this years ago from a guy like Christian Vieri who was exceptionally fast, like Gyökeres is, for example, but also big and strong.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of build, which Yamal doesn't, but Yamal's not small either, and you push the body, no matter how fit you are, like there's diminishing returns on what your fitness and your preparation can do.
Yeah.
If at the same time you're going faster and harder.
Yeah.
And more.
But you mentioned Vieri, which is a good point. But if you drop Christian Vieri into the modern game, he would be a lot fitter and a lot sharper than he was 25 years ago.
I don't think fitness was his problem.
But I don't mean fitness. See, when I say fitness, I mean the whole conversation is fitness, where you eat the right things. You don't drink any alcohol whatsoever. Right. So your body is tuned to being an elite athlete, which these boys are these days. So our intensity back in the 90s was still 100% from me. But if you drop that intensity compared to now, because you're not living your lifestyle right, and you're not the whippet that you should be, you're going to probably pick up one or two more injuries.
Put a little bit different. You were like a VW Beetle, and you put the pedal down to the max.
We all did.
And you were going as fast as you could.
We all did.
These guys are in a Ferrari.
Exactly.
And they go faster than you.
Exactly.
However, because there's limits to how fast you can go and maintain your integrity, they are more likely to get injured, especially if they play at a young age. Yeah. This is another theme I want to get into, which is young players. I mean, you mentioned Michael Owen there, who we were
just had a great voice note from him. Yeah.
For those who don't know, for those who are too young to know about Michael Owen's early career, young phenom, super fast, breaks into. I think he made his debut for Liverpool on the last day of a season and scored. Yeah. And then went on.
Played for England at like 17, Ballon d'Or, early 20s. The fastest thing on two legs, and when he was a teenager.
He suffered an injury. I think it was against Leeds United.
Ripped his hamstring.
And then after that, he lost a lot of his pace. He still had his technical ability.
Yeah.
He didn't become slow overnight, but he didn't have that breakaway speed that he had.
His slowness, as he called it, would have been bringing himself down to our level, where he was rapid as a teenager.
Right. Which meant that you could catch him. At the end of his career.
Yeah, when he's got no hamstrings, But he left a fascinating voice note, didn't he? Saying he's not sure if you can ever get to the bottom of it. Well, he thinks it might have been genetic because his dad was a footballer, suffered bad hamstrings, and his brothers did as well.
And that opens up a whole other argument, right? So, I mean, I remember when Lamine Yamal broke into the first team, I think, or when he started training with them, I think he was still 15. And I remember having this conversation with Jules, and I said, like, I don't see the point when you're a growing boy of pushing somebody this far. Yes, there are people who have long careers and make their debuts very young. I mentioned Maldini before. But those are outliers. Our bodies are all different. Yeah. And it's interesting that he brought up genetics. And I genuinely wonder, is this something Barcelona, not picking Barcelona, any club, I mean, Arsenal with Max Dowman, Milan with Camarda. Like, there's a lot of examples like that. Do they go, and to what degree can they access, for example, somebody's genetic history? Does that play into it? Or do they just take the measurables and say, Lamine, okay, we can probably measure if Lamine is still, if his body's still growing. I mean, now he's 18, maybe not, but sometimes it continue.
Yeah.
We can measure his size. We can do tests on his muscles, and we can say, yes, you're ready to play this much.
Yeah.
But without that genetic element,
it's very hard.
It's hard, right?
It's very hard. I mean, let's just take it back 25, 30 years ago when Arsene Wenger, when we mentioned Ray Wilkins before, and Arsene Wenger wanted to meet the parents of a young player because he wanted to get an idea how tall they would be. So that's like 25 years ago. My fascination is where we're going to be in 25 years' time. It's going to be amazing. I talked to Joel Ward about Oliver Glasner the other day, taking blood samples every single day to try and preempt any sort of injury. It's fascinating. With young players like Yamal and Max Dowman and all these young kids that are trying to break their way into first teams, I don't think there's any patience from these young players because they know how good they are and they want to play, which is a great thing.
Was there patience in your day?
With smaller squads and...
I'm just curious. Tell me your story. Right? So you played for West Ham, you played for Everton, you played for Sunderland, despite being a Newcastle fan.
Depends how good you are,
You played for Liverpool.
Because the Robbie Fowlers and the Michael Owens all come through Liverpool.
But this is what I'm asking you. At any point, maybe when you were older, were there kids who maybe trained with you, who were 16, 17, coming up, apprentices?
Joey Cole, Michael Carrick.
Yeah, and you felt these guys are better than what's on the pitch. They should play more.
Yep.
Did they want to? Can you just describe that environment when you had like a young Joe Cole?
Yeah, who was better than any one of us.
Well, no,
he was different
wasn't because Paulo Di Canio was on the team, and he would strike you down if you heard you say that.
And I was shared a dressing room with the both. And let me tell you, those two were quite fiery towards each other, trying to nick the same position.
But we know who's better.
Okay.
So let's not go there.
Right.
But honestly, what was the environment? Was there a lot of preoccupation at West Ham saying, like, we got to make sure this Joe Cole guy, he's like a Fabergé egg. How do we make sure he doesn't get hurt? Is he going to put on weight? Is he going to do this? How is he going to develop? Was there a lot of sports science involved in that?
Not a lot of sports science when Harry Redknapp was the manager, and then Glenn Roeder after that. But what you've got to take into consideration, these guys were very good at protecting the young players because you can't just stick them into 40 games of the Premier League when you're like 15, 16. And you're going to be like one of West Ham's potentially greatest ever players, or certainly like coming through the academy, and you're gonna play really well and be a superstar. Loads of them at the time. Michael Carrick comes into that conversation. You've got to drip feed them into the first team,
right?
Because you have to. Because
Lamine Yamal was not drip fed into the Barcelona first team.
Well, probably nor was Pedri. And it's a different game, Gab. The game now is more, I would say, on the talent because the pitches are perfect. The game sometimes, even though we mentioned intensity, can be that little bit slower where you take more time and you get more time on the ball. 90s and noughties football was like, you've got to fight for every single ball coming out of the sky. And you're going to land one at your feet, and Vinnie Jones is going to go straight through you. And if the ball's in the air, so is John Fashanu. That's the game we played. And so Brian Robson and Norman Whiteside and Steve McMahon and all these guys wouldn't give you half a second on the ball. Okay. So the Joey Coles of this world had to be protected a little bit more.
Okay, I think you're kind of...
I know I'm mishmashing the ages,
yes,
but
I think Whiteside had retired by the time. I know, but
you get
the time you were a regular in the Premier League.
I know, but I
love that. Yeah,
but you get my point, though, right? You can't just lob these.
You're not going to bring up Billy Whitehurst, no?
Well, there you go. Yeah, but you can't just lob these young kids into
Norman Hunter was biting your legs.
You can't. You can't.
When it suits Don, he makes it seem as if he's an old timer. When it doesn't suit him,
because I played against the majority of them. I actually did when I was like 18, 19. So my 18, 19 goes into like 29. So I've come across all these guys. I know how tough it can be. More so, especially for a youngster. You have to protect these guys.
I'm wondering too, is there a psychological element to it? Because I go back, I mean, this game stands out, but it's not the only one, right? Barcelona against Inter, Champions League semifinal last year.
Yeah.
Barcelona need to get back into it. It felt like, I know Pedri half fit, whatever. They're just looking for him constantly.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking to myself, something's wrong here. Like, he may be your best player, maybe. But it's already unhealthy if you just look for the best guy all the time.
That's the dilemma, isn't it? Because should he be in the team?
No,
the answer is probably not.
Being in the team, but everything was overloaded, and he took over. And you saw the number of times he tried to dribble. Inter overloaded his side time and again. Should we have a different attitude towards these young players, because there's a physical element to it, there's a psychological element to it.
So here's the problem, right? So here's the problem. If you take a different attitude and you say to Yamal and you say to Pedri and all these young kids, right, let's just put a number on it, right? Let's just say, right, the new law is for a teenager, you can only play 25 games a season. Let's just say that's like an unwritten law. So you're protecting the players not playing 50 games. At some point, because the kids are so good these days and there's so much stats around the game, people will jump on and go, oh, Yamal's only scored 10 goals this season. These guys want to be hitting 25 and 30. They want to be hitting 40 appearances. So how do you get the best out of these young kids with their numbers and their performances without playing them every single week? So my take when I go back to like Glenn and Harry, how they manage these young players is you say to Yamal in a game that Barcelona are going to win, you ain't playing today. Right. You're going to be sat in the stand. You're not even going to be on the bench. Then when we need you in 3 games' time for a big one, you're going to star in this game. So you take the workload off them.
I think it's interesting because, the way you do it is hopefully they're grown-ups, hopefully they're family supportive, hopefully they're surrounded by people who
It comes from the boss, though. It comes from the boss.
No.
It does, because you can decide if they're playing.
Of course, it comes from the boss, but just let me finish. What I'm saying is, if there's a right environment, right nurturing environment, you can sell them on the idea that if we bring you along more slowly, you can be one of the best players to have ever worn the Barcelona shirt, or insert whatever team. You can star here for 15 years. You can win multiple Champions Leagues and Ballon d'Or.
Yeah.
If we overplay you, you can become Ansu Fati.
Yep.
Lamine Yamal knows who Ansu Fati is because he was probably 12 or 13 when Ansu Fati was him.
Can I say very quickly what his response would be? I want to be Messi. Who also played at 16, 17.
Yeah, he's playing much more than Messi did at the time.
I want to be as good as him.
Okay,
so that's what the player would say to you.
That's fine. And maybe you will be. But you could also become Ansu Fati.
I know. So what? My point is, what do you do? Because you haven't got a crystal ball.
Yeah, no. I think this is an area where sports science really have to fill this gap, and you can't. And it's so broad, and it's still so far behind. We take it as read. I mean, obviously, I'm sure. Yeah. You've got stories about when you were breaking in at Liverpool, and you guys.
Or Neil Ruddock putting his heart rate monitor on the dog just to make sure that his stats were quite high when the physios were looking.
That sounds more like a West Ham type story, but
probably.
Yes.
I agree, though. Sports scientists is going to be amazing. It's amazing
the facilities
now,
and everything, cryogenics, and it seems amazing, but it doesn't have all the answers, and there's still so much work to do. And I know it's just so important to get this right.
Definitely.
And I don't have a problem with playing the kids, and it's brave and whatever. But I would generally tend to err on the side of caution, because you may get outliers. You may get people like him, like Diego Maradona, like Messi. But even go back to Cristiano. Look how much Cristiano played when he was Lamine Yamal's age, and look at the role he had within the team. People forget that before Cristiano became the center of the universe, he was a fleet-footed winger who played sometimes. Sometimes he didn't play. Come off the bench, go on the bench. This is at 20, 21 years of age here. And this is freaking Cristiano Ronaldo. Yeah. Right?
So does that come down to a little bit of genetics? Does it also come
could
down
be genetics,
to looking after your body?
But could also help explain why Cristiano Ronaldo's still banging them in now that he's 40 years old. And why, broadly speaking, he's been mostly injury-free throughout his career.
So I don't know how he lives his life. No. I don't know this.
That's part of it. But I'm saying is he wasn't overplayed when he was young.
Right.
They did, I think all these things come together.
Yeah.
And wow, just something to think about this international break. All right, enough overplaying youngsters. How about some quick hits instead?
Let's do it.
It's official. UEFA have given the green light, and Villarreal, Barcelona in Miami, and Milan Como in Perth are a go. Don, does this bother you as much as it bothers some folks?
No, I think it's inevitable. I think to try and expand LaLiga Serie A, I think it's a good thing. The only thing I'm worried about is the integrity of the game. How many Villarreal supporters and Como supporters will be watching their game down in Perth or down in America?
Well, for Como, it's an away game. It's more like how many Milan supporters are going to be.
I would imagine it'll be 99.9% Milan supporters rather than Como, and 99.9% more than Villarreal. Yeah, so the integrity of the game bothers me a little bit.
There's several bits of this. That's certainly one of them. Real Madrid, I think, had a point when they said, well, wait a minute. Villarreal away is one of Barcelona's toughest away trips.
Yeah.
Now it's basically turned into a home game.
Gab, why did UEFA go out of their way to make it clear that this is a one-off and they remain against this?
It's pretty remarkable when you read their statement where they say this should not be happening. League games should not be played abroad. It should be played on home soil. We have to grant it in an exceptional case in these two. And they say that they have to grant it for several reasons. One is certainly in Milan's case, they don't really have a choice because they draw 70,000 fans a game.
Yeah.
They share the stadium.
Yeah.
There's no other dates. The only other stadium in Italy that could accommodate them theoretically would be the Olympic Stadium in Rome, but there's two teams already playing there.
Yeah.
Barcelona obviously is a different case, but they say FIFA are the ones who should make the rules on this, and FIFA, they set up a committee following their settlement after they were sued by Relevant Sports. But they settled that lawsuit. But that framework isn't in place yet. So I think they fear legal challenges themselves. They do not want to get sued. And if you're really cynical, Relevant Sports, who made this happen, are also FIFA's commercial partners now. as of March 2025. So it's a complex thing. I genuinely don't think that UEFA believes that there's a lot of appetite for this. And I think a lot of fans are against it for the reasons you mentioned and other reasons too, because reaction from the players hasn't been great, Don. Frankie de Jong says he doesn't like it. He plays for Barcelona, of course. He says it's not good for the players because of the travel, blah, blah, blah. And you can understand why other clubs are opposed because, as we said, for the reasons we mentioned before, Barcelona get to play in Messi's backyard. Milan's Adrian Rabiot, who doesn't mince words, called it, quote, absurd.
Well, it's not absurd, is it? It's just something that...
What, flying all the way to Australia, to the other side of the world to play a game?
But just get on with it and just think what you're trying to do for Serie A or La Liga. Just see the bigger picture. Don't be so insular where, I've got... Because they travel away in pre-season and play games. They travel away when they're playing... I mean, not this far, obviously, but when they're playing Champions League football, it's just another bit of travel.
Well, no, I think there's a big difference between flying 25 hours to Australia. I think
they can acclimatise pretty quickly, these players. If the schedule and the logistics are done right, it's not the end of the world from a footballer's point of view. It's not going to take anything away from your performance. Maybe they're edging to what I was saying.
You're sounding like Luigi De Siervo, who is the head of the Italian league, who said that Rabiot should respect his employer who pays him a lot of money.
I wouldn't go that far, but he's not a million miles away.
I think he should just shut up about this.
Well, there you go.
And he should shut up for another reason, which we'll get to in the next question.
Everything says this is about money, Gab, publicity. How much are they actually making?
So this is the thing. So on the money side, the guarantee for the two teams reported, because this hasn't been confirmed, but Barcelona Villarreal will split between $10 and $12 million.
Equally?
I think Villarreal will get a little bit more because they're giving up the home game, and in Perth, Milan and Como are going to split between $8 and $9 million. That's a ton of money. Is it really? Barcelona, as we'll get to later, they made more than $1 billion in revenue last year, which is a lot of money. We're talking.
It might just help them pull a lever.
We're talking 0.5% increase here. Now, obviously, it's much higher for Como and Villarreal because their revenues are lower. This whole idea about the publicity and spreading the game, look, the NFL does it. I think it's nonsense. The Premier League spoke about this. Richard Master, Premier League Chief Executive, says, people know who we are. I mean, Premier League, of course, looked at this in 2008. I don't know that it moves a needle. I don't know if there's anybody in Miami who doesn't know, who's like, oh, look, there's a soccer game coming in town. Let me find out. And then
does it not give those fans in Miami that edge of being a little bit closer to some of the Barcelona players because they can see them on their doorstep? I was there.
Maybe they're a little closer. How are you going to monetize it other than buying a shirt and coming on tour? I don't know. I think this whole thing with the tours, it had its time. You don't need to do this in season. The NFL is a completely different product.
How?
Sorry?
How does it matter if it's NFL or soccer?
So when the NFL came over, so first of all,
because where do they go? Germany, they go London, obviously.
Yeah. So first of all, there is no competitive professional league in Europe, right? So if you're an NFL fan, this is literally the only chance to see high level football.
Yeah.
Secondly, the NFL, when they come for a week, they do clinics, they do all sorts of things. Here, because of travel logistics, it's going to be far more in and out. And there's even debate about how lucrative is this really? So yeah, I think it's a complex issue. I don't quite know that the business case is there. I think they committed to this a long time ago, and now they're pig-headedly putting this through. I don't think the juice is worth a squeeze, put differently. Don, we're not done. We have more quick hits.
More, let's do it.
Jim Ratcliffe was crystal clear. He says Ruben Amorim needs to demonstrate he's a great coach over 3 years.
Crystal clear.
And he was asked, whoa, what if the Glazers told him to sack Amorim? And he said, well, that's not going to happen.
What if they lose against Liverpool?
Not going to happen.
What if they lose against Brighton? What if they lose against Forest and lose against Spurs? 3 years? Nope.
He seems certain that the Glazers won't ask him. It's funny because even the way that's couched, it's like a reminder that, bro, it's not your club. It's the Glazers club.
Yeah.
And they will decide, not you.
Yeah. If their shares and their stocks all fall.
I see his point in wanting to back the coach and sticking to the system. And, it's been less than a year.
He mentioned Mikel Arteta, didn't he?
Sure. But at the same time, it's almost kind of slightly humiliating.
I don't really think he knows what he's talking about when it comes to football, Gab. Business, making money, being a genius at what you do. When he talks about football, the more I hear Jim Ratcliffe speak, the more I think he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's got no idea. Why would you mention 3 years when you've got them games coming up, as I've just mentioned? Because he's going to look pretty silly if he's going to have to sack Ruben Amorim after them 4 games, because what if they lose all 4? Now,
he's painted in a corner when times are tough. I
think basically he doesn't want to sack Ruben Amorim because he's his man. He's his first appointment. That's basically what it is. He's trying to give him as much time as possible.
I think there's a business case not to sack him too. It's less than a year. Simple as.
I've done a worse job than Eric Ten Hag, but it's another story. Gab, who is Turki Al-Sheikh? Why are United fans so excited about his tweet in the last 24 hours?
Well, you're Mr. Saudi. Yeah. You should know.
I do know.
You probably met Turki Al-Sheikh.
I know him well.
Head of the General Entertainment Authority. He's the guy that brings the boxing, the big sporting events, and so on to Saudi Arabia. He's got a hand in the Saudi Pro League as well. He put out a tweet, and nobody knows how to read this. Right. Not because it's in Arabic, because we'll have that little translate function. He says, I'm going to quote this. Yep. The best news I heard today is that Manchester United is now in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. I don't know if it's April Fool's Day in Saudi. I don't know if he knows something. I don't know which previous owners he's talking about.
He must know something.
Is it Ratcliffe? Is he just having fun? I don't know. I'm assuming he doesn't drink, so probably not a drunk tweet. But it has set the world ablaze. You don't know anything, right? Despite your close follower to Saudi Pro League?
No. He's not texted me just yet. I'll wait for the text.
All right. Presumably he's not the new owner. But anyway. So, yes, it just kind of shows you how United world is on tenterhooks. Now, Turki Al-Sheikh, of course, he'd also be involved if, as reported, Manchester United arranged a friendly in Saudi Arabia to raise some cash in the new year, which is kind of funny because you're negotiating with them, but then you're also kind of mocking the owners, which I don't get. But what's your take on in-season friendlies? You don't have to worry about European football or the League Cup for that matter. I'm assuming you're fine with it. Since you're okay with flying to Perth.
Fine. We've done it as players. Sometimes it can be a bonding session. Sometimes you can get a little bit of vitamin D and a bit of sun and a bit of relaxation and get away from all the noise in and around Carrington or the Premier League. If you've got time on your hands, rather than allow the players just to go and take separate holidays and fly here then everywhere with their families, why wouldn't you bring them together? So I think it's not a bad idea.
It's interesting because the account I wrote, they're making around 6 million euros a game. Presumably they'd be playing a friendly against Cristiano or Al Nasser or Al Hilal or whatever. It's funny because this is more than what Barcelona are going to make from going to Miami, which just tells you how much money there's in Saudi and also how United, despite everything, remain a massive brand.
Yeah, true. Gab, I heard of the European Club Association, ECA. Well, that's no more. They've rebranded it. What's the plans for the Champions League?
So the ECA is now called simply European Football Clubs. They became much bigger. This whole thing started out something called the G14, where they had 14 of the biggest clubs in Europe. Now they have more than 800 clubs, including like 139 women's clubs. They're kind of a lobbying group of clubs. The danger with this, and it's great that you've become really big, but a club in Andorra or Anderlecht women are going to have very different priorities to Barcelona or Manchester United or Real Madrid. It's just it's as simple as that. But they are partners in a company called UC3, which is partners with UEFA. It's a joint venture, and they run the Champions League, run European competitions, and they say that from 2027 to 2033 for the next cycle, they're going to make even more money, 500 million more than they make now. They're talking about trying to do a deal, like a global deal with some streamers for 1 game a week. And of course, Netflix got mentioned. Disney Plus, owned by the same parent company as ESPN, also gets mentioned. I don't know. There seems like a lot of talk for me right now. And making the whole emphasis on trying to get more money from broadcasters when the numbers are what they are, I don't know. It doesn't really float my boat, but hey, European football clubs, if you think that sounds better than ECA, go for it. Why not? Now, reports in Spain suggest that A22, the company representing what's left of the Super League, which is basically just Real Madrid and Juventus at this stage, now they have pitched a different format to UEFA. They still want to collaborate. I'm told UEFA do not like this. They want all the games on some free streaming platform where then you'd pay extra, blah, blah, blah. But also, format-wise, they say, hey, why don't we take the 36 teams, split them into 2 groups of 18, and then but one would be the top tier, and one would be kind of the second tier. And then the top 8 from the top tier advance automatically to the round of 16. The second 8 would go to a playoff, and they would face the top 8 in the second tier. You hate this as much as I do.
What a load of rubbish. Who's going to volunteer to go into the second tier?
Well, presumably they'd use coefficients and rankings.
Yeah, but you just don't do it. I mean, you know when this Super League got announced, what was it? I can't remember what it was. 4 or 5 years ago when all the clubs sort of signed up to it, everyone sort of signed up and realised after fan revolt they just couldn't get involved. I knew from day one I couldn't get involved. When Bayern Munich said, no, we will be no part of this, you got no Super League.
Yeah.
If teams like Bayern say no, and Liverpool say no, and Man United say no, there's no competition to be had.
This is also a stupid format because...
And I didn't care about the format. It'll never get off the ground.
Right. Just the second tier, if only 8 of 18 go to the playoffs, you're going to have a whole bunch of dead rubbers at the end. And the other thing is...
It's not even the format, Gab. It won't happen. It's rubbish.
No, it's not going to happen.
It's absolutely rubbish.
UEFA will stand in their way.
Exactly. Barca announced their financial results, Gab. Profitable, but improving.
No, not profitable. They made a 17 million euro loss, which is... Obviously, they've made a loss, except for the big summer of Laporta leavers.
Right.
They've made losses every year, but this loss is only 17 million, so the loss is down. And the revenue, of course, passing the $1 billion mark, 994 million euros. That's a big deal, although some of that, I think, might also have to do with some one-off revenue as well. I don't know.
Is this including stadium cost, everything? Does the stadium cost come into this, or do we not?
Stadium cost does come into this, yes, of course. So they're on track. There's still a lot of debt to wind your way through. More Barca. Sporting director Deco says they don't necessarily need a traditional center forward, pointing out that Paris Saint-Germain didn't have one. So maybe Robert Lewandowski won't be replaced on.
Well, they're going to have to replace him at some point.
But not with a center forward.
Well, all right, unless you want to go down the PSG route, which is... when you look at their players, you think, yeah, it can work. Pep proved it can work. I still think they need one, do you?
I agree.
The Athletic report that Arsenal are in talks to renew their 10 million a season Visit Rwanda sponsorship, despite protests from fans, Gab.
Yeah, and I'm told there's also some internal protest against this. It's a bad look. Rwanda been sanctioned by the UK government over human rights. I think at some point, as a club, you need to figure out what you stand for. 10 million is a lot of money, but this is an undemocratic regime, and you just need to look at the list of charges against them. Harry Kane says he's open to extending his deal with Bayern, which expires in 2027 when he's going to... It's the summer he turns 34. By the way, Harry Kane has the same birthday as me.
Oh, does he?
Fun fact.
When?
And also, Joan of Arc, July 28th. How about that?
July? Yeah, all the best footballers are born in May.
Yeah, right. It's actually the opposite. Those are all the worst ones because those are the ones...
Oh, Beckham's in there.
I bet Beckham's an outlier, but like statistically... Okay, so statistically...
I'm going to get you a list next time I'm on.
Statistically, this has been proven, right?
So, is this the French manager that proved this, who could only pick certain players in their birth year?
No. That's based on astrology. And I think that was Raymond Domenech.
Yeah, I'm not picking Zidane because he was born in July.
So basically, most leagues they have a cutoff. Some have it based on calendar year, and some have it based on school year. So it's September 1st.
Yeah.
So the ones who are born in certain times of year where they're essentially playing up at a young age, or the ones who are more mature because they were born in, for example, in September. So, for example, Ruud van Nistelrooy and the original Ronaldo were born on the same day and so on. There is definitely a strong correlation there. I don't remember exactly what it is. It exists in other sports.
I'm next time I'm coming in with a list of players born in May.
Yeah. Well, Cristiano was born in February.
All right.
Your favorite player. just remember. Anyway, back to Harry Kane. He says that when he first left, he was pretty sure he'd return to the Premier League and his career there. Now he's not so sure.
Because he loves it at Bayern. He loves it at Bayern. He's playing with one of the biggest clubs in the world. However, his end game is he's building a lovely little house at Wentworth. When I say little, I mean hell of a house at Wentworth. So he will come back at some point. But I think if you
the golf course,
on the golf course,
near Virginia Water.
Yeah, he's on there. He's building. That's a fact. I think if you're Harry Kane, just play for as long as you can at the biggest club you can play for, and that's Bayern. Because what's your options? At his age, when his deal expires, with all due respect, the Liverpools and the Man Cities are not going to be there. The Arsenal's not going to
be there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So do you want to go back to Spurs? Fine. Or do you want to stay at Bayern? No, what I'd mind to be is stay at Bayern. Wouldn't you? I think so.
He grew up an Arsenal fan. How cool would it be if
he can't go to Arsenal? Surely,
but he was an Arsenal fan.
You can't. You'd ruin your Spurs legacy, wouldn't you? You can't.
Sol Campbell did it. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, all right.
No, but I like the fact that he's open and.
No.
I find the guy immensely.
He's
likable.
a smart man. He's a smart man. He's just leaving that door open for anyone in England that might want me. But I'm quite happy at Bayern. Espanyol have new owners. Gab, a group led by Alan Pace, who owns Burnley and have officially acquired the club.
So this is interesting. So I have my own history with Alan Pace in the sense that this guy who is not a billionaire, he's a guy, a finance guy.
Yeah.
When he bought Burnley, I thought to myself, wow, this is really talk about throwing money down the drain, because this was sort of Sean Dyche was leaving. They were on their way to getting relegated, and I'm like, Burnley's, for those who don't know their English geography, you'll know better than I do. But Burnley is not it's not a big city. It's not a wealthy place. Yeah. It's in the same catchment area as kind of sort of Manchester's catchment area. So there's so many other clubs, so much competition.
Yeah.
They haven't historically been like a long-term Premier League club, or rather they have been, but not really in the last 30, 40 years. Yeah. So I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And then what does he do? He goes down, appoints Vincent Kompany, and they dominate the league and go back up. And then they go down and then they come back up. So I will, no problem saying this, Alan. You were totally right. I was totally wrong on this one. Espanyol is interesting because Barcelona is obviously a massive city. Obviously, Barcelona are the biggest clubs.
Yeah.
The biggest club, but Espanyol, it's a big catchment area. And there's a lot of people, not just for political reasons, who don't like Barcelona and don't like what they stand for. And so I think there is a potential there for Espanyol, which maybe doesn't exist at Burnley. So
to steal some of what Barca have got.
Maybe not steal, but maybe convert newcomers. People come to Catalonia every year.
That's what I meant.
So it's interesting. And J.J. Watt, by the way, also apparently part of that ownership group. Don, you love your Serie A.
Yeah.
Kenan Yildiz has been lighting it up this season, and he's in talks to extend his contract, which runs through currently runs through 2029. It would just be one more year, but a significant bump in wages. He's earned this, right?
Love him. Do you like him? I love him.
I think he's phenomenal.
He's amazing. I mean, he's versatile. He can play left 10, right, but I think he's better off the left-hand side. He's got great feet. He can take the ball in tight areas. He can maneuver. He's got good balance. He sees a picture. Could do with scoring more goals, but I think when you look at the talent and what you've got to work with, you watch him and you go like, this kid is like frightening.
Yeah, if you saw his goals against Inter Milan or against, or
I commentated on the
Dortmund.
game. I commentated on the game last week against Milan, and it was a fascinating watch, and he was very good in moments in the game. But it was a real tactical battle. It was a fascinating game to watch. But as the player, I think we'll both agree he's going to go right to the very top.
All right, so let me put you on the spot. Which Turkish attacking midfielder would you take, Kenan Yildiz or Arda Güler?
Oh, I mean, they're different. Güler, I think, is more of a number 10 than Yildiz. Yildiz.
All right. Yeah. There you go. You heard it. I would lean Yildiz too.
Yeah. Gab, there's been rioting and some deaths in Morocco, but why are they protesting? What are they protesting about? Could this be a problem for the AFCON, which is scheduled to be played in January?
So it could be a problem for the AFCON. It could be a problem for the World Cup because, of course, 2030, Morocco are co-hosts. Now, part of it, it's called the Gen Z rebellion. Part of it is young people unhappy with the economy, with their job prospects, and so on. But there's been a big backlash against football. Morocco have invested more in football and football grounds and football stadiums, really than most other countries, certainly most countries outside of Europe and South America. And people are wondering, is this kind of a bread and circuses thing? Like, oh yeah, we have these shiny football facilities. We have the run in the World Cup. It's great, but we want to get paid. And it's really driven by young people. Started on social media. 3 people have passed already. And they have to play the Cup of Nations there because they have very good facilities. Caffin says, no, there's no question. There's no plan B. Say Morocco's plan A, plan B, plan C. But there's something to be said for social unrest, and also something to be said about, is football what a government should be spending money on, and to what degree, I guess. Steven Gerrard could be back in management soon, Don. He's the favorite to take over at Rangers following Russell Martin's disastrous stint. The very handsome Russell Martin. You're Scottish. Your thoughts?
Come on, Stevie. Come home. You know it makes sense. Come on. I mean, Invincible, when he won the title a few years back, he gets the city, he gets the club, never waffles about the project, never waffles about the philosophy. He understands that Rangers and Celtic, it's all about winning. It's not about how you play. Bring him home.
Okay. All right. Obviously, they would be getting a less handsome manager in Steven Gerrard.
No, you say that. Depends who you like. I think Stevie G is a handsome man.
But surely he's no Russell Martin. But seriously, what is the deal with this guy, with Russell Martin? Because I just want to take a little detour.
Wow, where'd you go?
Okay.
He never got Rangers from the start.
No, but we'll get to that. Because I know you're keen to talk about Rangers, but just for those who aren't as big on Rangers or Russell Martin, correct me if I'm wrong. He gets promoted with Southampton, right? Plays this very heavy possession game and
slow.
People seem to like it.
All right. You could say possession. I'd say slow.
Okay. Southampton are absolutely terrible.
Yep.
Nobody likes them.
Never learn.
I remember one game where I think they were losing 1-0 at home, and they had some sort of giant center forward.
Yes.
Who was like 6'5",
and they kicked it long.
And no, they didn't. He sends them on with like 2 minutes to go, and they're passing the ball sideways in the center circle. And I'm like, what's the point here? And
that there tells you everything about a manager that's not adaptable or versatile.
And then they look at this, and the people who own Rangers, which by the way include that guy Parag, who's super from the 49ers,
they need to take a look at themselves.
Smart. They look at him. They look at he won them over. How does he seduce people into hiring him?
I think he's a very good talker, I must admit, but you can talk, and it's a different skill set when you're applying for a job and you get an interview for a job and you convince the hierarchy that you know exactly what you're doing. You can seduce people quite easily with numbers, with graphics, with everything that you want to show them, and they'll go, oh, that's quite impressive. But that can get lost very quickly when you're talking about a game. And I'll take the Genk game for an example, because I watched it live, and they got pumped in the first 45 minutes. And they got hammered in terms of everything that was going on. Not so much a scoreline, but they got pumped over the 90 minutes. And he came on and he went, I thought you started the game really well. And I'm sitting there going, you're 1-0 down. You had one off the line, one off the crossbar, and one chalked off by VAR. So the fact that he's trying to seduce Rangers fans into seeing something that's not actually happening, he's way off the mark. Fans are not daft, Gab. Football fans are not daft. They know when their team's playing well. They know when their team started well, when they've been rubbish. He's never got the club. He talks about they never really wanted him in the first place. I didn't accept him in the first place. Maybe that would have happened if you had to put on a pair of shoes when you stood there and you got the job and had your Rangers tie and your Rangers crest on instead of turning up in hush puppies, put a pair of brogues on, read the room. But apart from that, which I'll forgive, you've got to make sure you talk and walk the walk and speak the language of what Rangers fans want. And that's about winning. Rangers fans don't care if you're playing in the short term. If you're playing terrible football and you're winning 1-0 every week and you're sitting top of the league and you're challenging Celtic, happy days.
So that's what you need to understand when you hire a coach, that you need to understand that they care more about results.
Winning. Ask Jose what he wants. Attractive football or winning? It's winning. It's always been about winning.
All right. So since, I guess, we're heavily Scottish at ESPN FC, as you know, and despite the fact that you don't sound like Stevie Nicol or Craig Burley, you are legit Scot.
Yep.
It's a weird, because Celtic are under pressure too. A lot of their fans are unhappy.
I think they're more happy at the board more than Brendan.
Okay, but are we seeing Are we seeing a shift from the duopoly anytime soon? Is there excitement, hearts and
Hearts
heads?
are sitting top of the league.
Tony Bloom in there.
I think it's more of a demise on what's happening to Scottish football, watching Rangers struggle and Celtic struggle.
So it's a case of the two big teams are doing
dropping
worse
back away,
rather than the other guys.
Which is not great for the league. Can't be good for the league. The Women's Champions League kicked off, Gab. More woe for Arsenal. They lost at home to Lyon.
Yeah, they obviously not doing great in the Women's Super League here. They let a 1-0 lead kind of fritter away against Lyon. Lyon, of course, who they beat in the Champions League semifinal last year. Some pretty bad defensive errors, trying to build from the back and whatnot. Really disappointing. Just they don't really look well, which is kind of ironic because it was like a couple weeks ago that they were crowned as the club of the year by France Football and all this stuff. They need to sort this out. They need to sort this out very quickly. Elsewhere in the Champions League, some surprising results. Paris Saint-Germain getting pumped 4-0 by Wolfsburg. I think Jules took the right show to take the show off between them and Arsenal losing. And also Barcelona. I know Bayern Munich women aren't Bayern Munich men and whatever. But Barcelona destroyed them 7-1. And when you watch them play, it looks like they play a different sport.
It reminded me watching that game and watching the highlights of that game. It reminded me of a Pep's Barcelona. It reminded me of like a group of women who are just playing, as you said, a different sport, but completely on another level. Like everything about them. Like the technique, the skill, the pace, the passing, the sharpness.
I think it's relevant because we reported on this before. Barcelona women's team, they appear to be cutting back. They've got a lot of big stars in the final year of the contract. They necessarily several of them haven't been renewed and so on. There's questions about whether they'll continue to fund the women's team to the levels that they have before. If this is the case, if this is somehow like sort of the beginning of an end or maybe some sort of reload situation, what a way to go out and watch them while you can, because even if honestly, they're on a different. I don't care they didn't win the Champions League last year. Incredible. Like it's not just about that. We're talking about performance here. It's really special to watch. Somebody named David Kogan will be the new independent football regulator, Don. Now, I don't expect you to get into the weeds about this politically, but in principle, do you like the idea of somebody outside the sport, somebody who answers to government and therefore to the voters? Do you like the idea that they should have some sort of say in regulating the sport in the interest of the fans? And if we were to live in a donocracy, right? What powers should the football regulator have?
Well, you'd like to hear what he's got to say about all topics that would be on the agenda or on the list. You can't just say like, yeah, it can be a good thing. Is he not from football? He's not a football background.
I'm sure he's a football fan.
Right, but he doesn't come from a football background.
No, he's not a former footballer.
No, but I mean, like, business and football or...
No, I don't think so. I think that's intentional, too, because you don't want somebody who has... who has ties to certain clubs or whatever, right?
I mean, this is more your domain, but I would just listen to everything that he's got to say, good and bad, about the game and what ideas he's got, no?
So, the way it works is they've given him certain powers, and obviously the Premier League has fought this. Nobody likes regulation, but I think it's more. I mean,
the question I would say to him, because I hate it with a vengeance. I hate PSR. I can't stand PSR.
Yeah, you like it when clubs go bust?
Well, how many Premier League teams have gone bust?
Because of PSR, but
no. How many Premier League teams have gone bust before PSR?
I've gone insolvent.
Yeah, Premier League teams. Doesn't happen. Happens lower league down the pyramid.
Yeah, it'd be after they get regulated and they get their points
I know
stopped.
we're going quite a little bit off topic here, but how can you punish Newcastle for getting Champions League football and then say, right, you've got to sell some of your young players? They heard Eddie out. Of course they did. They had to send Minter. They had to send Elliot Anderson. Eddie Howe's talked this week of buying him back. As soon as they come out the Champions League and Aston Villa get in, they've got to sell Douglas Luiz. They've got to try and jiggle around PSR. These teams like Villa and these teams like Newcastle and these teams like Tottenham should be allowed to challenge Man City at the top. Or Arsenal, Liverpool at the top. So I find it strange how these teams can't get there because of this PSR. I find it bizarre.
So the idea
you finish in the top four, you get Champions League football. Come on, boys, kick on. No, we can't. We've got to sell some players because of PSR.
If you overspent before, because you want to make the sport sustainable, right? It's like in any business.
Newcastle can't overspend, Gab. They're the richest club in the world.
They're not. Their owners are the richest, maybe very
richest
rich.
owners.
And by the way,
in the
they're
world.
not the richest people. Can we just stop this? Saudis are not the richest people in the world. The
the
Saudi
richest
sovereign
club
wealth fund
in the world. Newcastle.
They're not
would be.
the richest. What does
Well,
it
it
mean?
would be.
What?
If it wasn't a PSR and you go factually, which club's worth the most because of the owners, it would be Newcastle
They're
United.
not. It's nonsense. Because
How's it nonsense?
Are you saying which club has the richest owners?
Yes.
Okay. So
It's Newcastle.
Right.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that.
But the fact that they can't.
doesn't mean
my point is they can't spend anything. So what's the point? Because of PSR, you're limited. And from a sporting level, if you get your team into Champions League football,
So
how can you then not kick on and be a regular top 4 or a regular top 3 or a regular 1-2?
The reason PSR exists is that if you have is two reasons, right? One is if you have somebody coming in, spending a lot of money, putting debt on the club, possibly, which generally is what happens. Obviously, when Man City did it, they were generally debt free, and they just kept. This is before financial fair play rules, but they just kept putting money in, and it was legit cash. That's a different story. But generally, what happens is you make all these commitments, and sometimes you don't follow through on it, and then that creates a chain reaction where other people who you owe money to, they don't get paid, and then they struggle to make payroll.
Do you know what was laughable to me?
Let me finish a second, because fundamentally, everybody loses money in football, right?
Yeah.
You just look at the numbers, right?
Yeah.
Everybody, it's not a profitable industry, right? The other reason is a sustainability reason, which is if we allow people to come in and spend as much as they want, then other clubs are going to have to go and spend more than they have to try to keep up, because it's going to drive prices up.
That's a good conversation.
And that's going to imbalance the whole system.
That's a good conversation, because you say, right, you can come in. Let's just take Newcastle for an example. You can come in and spend what you want.
Mm-hmm.
Eddie Howe couldn't spend what he wants because he's got to convince players to sign for Newcastle. So you just can't go out and buy Kane and Ronaldo,
Right.
Jordi Alba, or you can't go out and buy these guys because they might not want to sign for Newcastle. So you're not just spending what you want. And the laughable thing
But
to
that's
me,
because profit and sustainability rules exist.
well, I know, but
That's
they
why you
shouldn't.
can't.
That's my point. But the laughable thing to me with this PSR, and I think the most damning thing from what I've saw of PSR, is when Aston Villa got into the top 4, got into the Champions League, and they were forced to sell Douglas Luiz, and they took 2 players that I knew would never, ever, ever play for Aston Villa in Berenachea and Illing Jr. These 2 kids were never going to play for Aston Villa.
Yeah.
I knew it from day one. I've commentated on them a lot. I've seen these kids a lot. They were never going to play for Villa. It was a chance for Villa to try and get around and skirt round by getting Douglas Luiz off the wages, selling them, getting 2 young players that were never going to play for you. It can't be good.
Well, that's a choice that they made. They didn't have to do that.
Well, it was that or a 10-point deduction. Eddie Howe talked about
No,
it the
it
other
wasn't
day.
that. Sorry,
Hang on, let me just go to Eddie Howe. No. Come back to that one.
You can't say that.
Well, I can about Eddie Howe. I can about Eddie Howe because he said it on TV the other day.
You talk about Eddie Howe, then don't talk about Aston Villa.
Okay,
Aston Villa did not have to do that dubious deal with Juventus.
They did.
They could have. No, of course not.
They did. I heard Monchi talk about it.
Oh, well, Monchi says so. He must be speaking truth.
I'm going to listen to him.
Okay.
But let's just talk about Eddie Howe. Eddie Howe said the other day.
You can't say this if you not allow me to talk.
Well, go on then.
Okay, so on the Monchi deal, there were different ways to do this, right?
Yeah.
They chose to do it, doing this deal with the inflated transfer values and the swap and then Lewis Dobbin and the other guy and all this other stuff, right? They chose to deal with it that way because they chose to spend money before, and then afterwards they chose, okay, rather than selling Morgan Rogers, for example, or one of our good players, we're going to go and do this accounting sleight of hand. So they opted to do that, right?
All right.
They had other options, and they were forced into because of profit sustainability rules, but they didn't have to. They didn't have to do the Douglas Luiz or Berenachea deal. They could have done different deals, and they knew what the rules were before. Now, on to Eddie Howe.
Right, different owner.
Which is
Newcastle
what you actually
United.
care about more.
I do, but I do care about.
By the way, it's not like the guy who owes Aston Villa is a pauper.
But I knew these 2 kids were never going to play for Villa. I just knew it. So
Berenachea, by the way, turned out to be a pretty good footballer.
No, he's a very good footballer, and so is Illing Jr. But I knew they were never going to play for Villa.
Yeah,
so
listen.
Eddie Howe spoke in his press conference last week, and he got asked about Elliot Anderson. And I'm sort of paraphrasing, but he said I'd like to buy him back. He said we had to sell him at the time, otherwise we were looking at a points deduction.
Right.
Why can that be right? You've got to sell your best young players from your academy.
Because
the previous owner had got them in Stuck.
No, it's not the previous owner.
It was Mike Ashley's mob who got Newcastle in Stuck.
No, it's not. Well, sorry, that's a whole. I'm not saying he was good or whatever, but no, it's.
But do you agree with the concept that you got to sell a Newcastle graduate and Minte because otherwise you're going to get a points deduction?
You need to balance the books. That's just the
It
reality.
shouldn't exist.
How much did they spend on Isak? 60 million, something like that?
60 million, yeah. Sold him at 120.
Okay. So they spend 60 million on Isak because they chose to spend when these guys, when they sit there, they make budgets. They know what the rules are, right?
Yeah.
It's not like it's a surprise. And so we spend a lot of money on Isak and they sold him for much more later. But obviously that happened after they let Elliot Anderson go, right?
Yeah.
And Minte.
And Longstaff.
They go and they budget. They choose to do their accounting in a certain way with the amortization, which is what makes your homegrown players, by the way, more worth selling because their residual amortization is zero, so it's pure profit when you sell them. They choose to account for the club for clubs this way, and they choose to go and they choose to budget a certain way. So they bought Isak, they bought Botman, they spent on good players so they could get better, so they could grow the team. Let's be very clear on this. The Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, they're not running Newcastle the way Abu Dhabi ran Manchester City or the way Abramovich ran Chelsea. They're running this as a business, right? And you see, even
they could afford to put £1 billion on the table at the Premier League, Newcastle's owners, and says, if we screw up here and if we leave Newcastle United in a worse state, we will leave £1 billion behind. They could.
But you know what? They choose not to because they
they can't because of PSR. There's no point.
It hasn't even come up. It hasn't even come up. They haven't even offered to. When we're talking about redeveloping St. James, they're talking about borrowing money to do that. Oh, why are they borrowing money? They're PIF. Because that's what a business does. They're running this club as a business. They may be Saudi, right? And I know we have this cartoonish thing, they don't care, they're just shoveling money. No. When it comes to Newcastle, they are trying to run Newcastle and turn it into a sustainable business, unlike perhaps what they're doing with the Saudi Pro League and whatnot. And that's simply the reality of it. So I think they're actually the first people who are happy with PSR, even though Eddie Howe obviously isn't.
I'm going to state a fact. I can't stand PSR, and many fans can't.
There you go.
Jordi Alba will move on from Inter Miami. Is that okay, Gab? Another Spanish left-back lined up to replace him?
Sergio Reguilon. Remember the guy we thought was really good until we didn't? I thought Sergio Reguilon, early on, I thought, wow, this guy's really good. And then obviously his career kind of went off the boil a little bit. I think he's now unattached. But he's younger. I think he's 30 now, so he's presumably has better legs. And Jordi Alba obviously will never be the player that Jordi Alba was. No. But yeah, why not? Former Luton central defender Tom Lockyer is reportedly training with Bristol Rovers. He's been given the all clear after suffering a cardiac arrest in 2023, which, by the way, wasn't his first cardiac arrest. Don, he's 30. I don't get this at all. But do you understand why you want to come back?
From what point don't you get it? The player's point of view or
from the player's point of view? I mean,
I get it from the player. I do because all you want to do is play football. I know you'll think of life and I know you think that's more important, which it is, but you don't want to sort of have the sense when you retire that I left something behind. I get it's sensitive and I get it's very dangerous.
I don't know if he has family, loved ones.
He has. I think he has.
I don't know. It's a very personal choice.
I do get it from a player's point of view why he would want to play.
I don't understand. I mean, maybe it's also similar to what you experienced when you chose to retire as well, right? You always wonder, can I squeeze out one more season?
And he might be looking at guys like Daley Blind, who I think's had 3. He might be looking at other players and
Christian Eriksen, of course, as well. Some countries make this illegal. Yeah. Simple as. You cannot, they will not register you.
I get that. I do get it from the player's point of view why he'd want to try again and find out if he can cope.
Well, yeah, we just wish him well, regardless.
Bloomberg have issued their list of billionaires, Gab. Guess who's made the cut?
Cristiano! Of course. He is from the list I saw, he's the only footballer on the list. Now, this isn't how much you earn. This is what your net worth is, which in his case, obviously, he's got a chain of hotels, got a ton of investments, making a mint in Saudi Arabia, puts him over the $1 billion mark.
Wow.
From what I could tell, there's only 3 other athletes, 2 of them ex-athletes on the list. Michael Jordan, not really surprised because, again, all his ventures. LeBron James, still playing close to Cristiano's age.
Yeah.
And Roger Federer, who I don't know if he'd be anywhere near this.
No, Tiger.
I was surprised Tiger Woods was, but I guess I probably had to make a couple payouts for a couple reasons. And Roger Federer, I'm guessing, is because of the shoes. I don't think he made this whole thing just playing tennis and with the endorsements he
No.
got. So I think it's also his shoe business as well. Anyway, always a fun list. There you go, Cristiano.
Great
You're
list.
number one in this too.
Billionaire.
What can I say? That's okay because Elon
He'd
Musk
drop a mill down to me and you, couldn't he? Just would it affect him?
It's probably not, but it's weird. Elon Musk is like 800 times richer than Cristiano is.
Yeah,
that's kind of
rather-
mad. Isn't
Who'd
it?
you rather be?
Oh, yeah, I think I know the answer to that one. Sorry, Elon, even though we went to university together. Yeah, I'm going Cristiano here. Don, this brings us to an end. Thank you so much for filling Jules' tiny little shoes because he has tiny little feet.
Yeah.
We're going to be back on Monday because there's a small matter of internationals, World Cup qualifiers. Stuff is getting real. Until then, love the game, love your neighbor, love yourself.